Baby, because these people, they are crazy. Because they always talk about how Christian they is. Yeah, I don't know how many of them on that side are getting divorced because they getting caught up sleeping with their co-workers, staffers, interns, all the things. Yeah, you ain't got to believe me. Just go Google. You'll find some of it. I'm telling you, and the wives is being messy and petty. They putting it in the divorce. I'm like, ooh, that's got to be true because your lawyer would know that they going to lose it if they...
Some of those are words. Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. How was your Labor Day? I know some of those words. Nice to see Amy J. Eves, Joni Rankin, Jimmy Joe, Patty, Drew Van Runkle, laissez-faire, bruh, frickety, Andy Opperman hanging out. Holiday pay for AP. Thank you. My labor voluntarily given. Glad to have you here. Hope that you guys had an excellent 3-day weekend. Stephanie, I enjoyed it. It was nice. We didn't get to go to the Renaissance Festival, unfortunately, but I kept my tricorn hats. I didn't get to wear because it was all rainy in Kansas City, but I hope that you had a better weekend. We definitely got some good rest and recouped, and now we're here bright and early, ready to fight for liberty, truth, justice, and the American way. Unlike some comic book characters out there these days. What's up, Cat Dad? All right, guys, buckle up. I got a barn burner for you today. First up, Rosie O'Donnell. Remember her? She crawled out of her expat hideout in Ireland this week to blame a Catholic school shooting in Ireland. Catholic school shooting on MAGA Republicans. Yeah. Problem is, the shooter literally had killed Donald Trump, scrawled on the gun magazine. Rosie had to issue a groveling apology, but not before smearing millions of Americans. She's really smart. We're going to dive into her lie, the celebrity exodus out of this country, and why the left's war on Trump's America just keeps blowing up in their faces. Then we're going to talk about Labor Day this morning and the greatest and best system in the world, American capitalism. What's up? How we doing? Thank you, Andy, by the way, for that $20 to get to that bonus content unlock begun. We've started it. At the top of the next hour, my good friend Camellia Peterson joins me at 8 a.m. We're hitting 2 big stories with her first. We're going to talk about Trump's plan to reclassify marijuana at the federal level, what that means for medicine, public health, and the culture wars. And second, we're going to talk to her about the Democrats' dark money TikTok army. It's a secret network of influencers being paid up to $8,000 a month to push propaganda for the Democratic Party. You don't want to miss Camelia's take on how the left is trying to buy your feed. And then we're going to light it up kind of with the story of this Polish CEO. Did you see this video? This Polish CEO became an international villain after he stole a signed tennis cap from a kid at the U.S. Open. It was all caught on camera. It's hilarious. His apology tour is about almost as pathetic as the act itself. And we're going to explain why it's the perfect metaphor for elites snatching from the little guy. But wait until you hear about what we got for bonus content this morning today. If we hit $100 in Rumble Rants or shop sales, which we're well on our way to doing because looks like frickety Fred Siegel went and bought a Javier Milei Shogun of Liberty t-shirt at the shop, which puts us at $50 already raised. We're just getting started. You guys are amazing. Is it me? Oh, you like me. You really like me. That's Sally Field. 30 plus 20 means that we're at $50 raised so far. That's halfway towards the bonus content. If we hit $100 in Rumble Rants, which looks like we're probably going to do, or sales at thegriftshop.com, then you unlock Breakfast Theater. And today's Breakfast Theater is Elmo in Hell. You know the meme of Elmo and he's screaming? Ah! Well, Elmo apparently is in hell, and Sesame Street has been turned into a homeless camp after Trump's budget cuts killed NPR and PBS. Oscar the Grouch evicted, Bert and Ernie outed as yellow supremacists. It's a shame. Sad. Cookie Monster is reduced to eating Amazon boxes. It's all going down, but only if you help us to hit that $100 goal. It looks like we could do it. You guys want to do it? Let's do it. Stick around, smash the like button, share the stream, and let's show Rosie, unions, the Hollywood, and the leftist elites why America doesn't need them. This is the Wake Up America show, and we're just getting started. All right. Ratata, ratata, ratatata. Refresh. Breitbart. Open up the video and press play.
Hi, everybody. It's Rosie O'Donnell, star of the Flintstones. Listen,
Flintstones. Notice that it's like Flintstones, Rosie? When was the Flintstones?
Sense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
That was the wrong button. Norm Macdonald, ladies and gentlemen. Let her finish, please, Austin.
I know. I know a lot of you were very upset about the video I made before I went away for a few days. I didn't go online and haven't seen.
You went away for
today,
a few days?
But you are right. I did not do my due diligence before I made that emotional statement. And I said things about the shooter that were incorrect. I assumed, like most shooters, they followed a standard MO and had standard, feelings of
really? I'm guessing that she doesn't, when she talks about most shooters, she's not talking about the most shooters that occurs every weekend in Chicago. Oops. Did we forget about, when the left says most shooters, they have to narrow it down to a certain type of shooting and say most shooters. I assume they fit. Even when you think that you assume that they fit, they don't often fit very neatly into the left's narrative on things like this.
Ray-loving kind of gun people. Anyway, the truth is, I messed up, and when you mess up, you fess up. I'm sorry. This is my apology video, and I hope it's enough.
I hope it's enough. So frustrating. But I mean, you know what? Good for her. Good for her for fessing up. Apologies are very rare these days. Rosie O'Donnell, she crawled out of her villa in Ireland. She fled the United States because of Donald Trump's reelection. She wanted to get out of America. A lot of people are trying to do that these days, both left and right. And she went on TikTok and claimed that this Catholic school shooter was a MAGA Republican. She called him a white supremacist. She called him an NRA-loving gun nut. And the whole bingo card. She had the whole leftist bingo card in her free. She didn't even need the free space in the middle because she was able to get a full bingo on that one without it. Problem was, it wasn't true. So this shooter, Robert Westman, was a transgender individual who literally scrawled "Kill Donald Trump" on his gun magazine. So the words "Kill Donald Trump" written on the weapon, and Rosie O'Donnell tells the world this is a MAGA guy. She spread it to her millions of followers, right? Millions of people, right? And I guarantee you that the video, that's the apology video, doesn't get as much traction or views as the one where she spread that lie. Typically, it's the case. I could be wrong. If it is, I'll apologize. How's that sound? And say I got it wrong. But having worked in the news business for a year or two, I can tell you this, that a lie goes around the world twice before the truth has time to put on its shoes. Anybody read Mark Twain? No? Nobody remembers who he is? Connecticut Yankee, King Arthur's Court? Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn? No? Nobody remembers the good old days here. The boomerism is starting to take over. I can feel it taking over my body. Zed the Head, Richard Bell, Barney Styles, all hanging out in the chat. Nice to see you guys. Did you guys know that you can actually drop a clip of the show? Oh, yes. You should see it soon in the Rumble bot, dropping the information on how you can actually drop a clip in the show. I have it set to an automatic 5-minute timer, but just in case it hasn't dropped it yet, let's go ahead and do that in the chat. Let me drop it right there. You guys are now capable of dropping clips. I think this is my experiment, first experiment with this tool. So if you want to clip your favorite moments, just type !clip in the chat to grab the last 30 seconds, or add a number for a custom length up to 60 seconds for clips, guys, of the show. Instant link, instant share. Let's make this show go viral. Do it. So exclamation point clip 45 would be 45 seconds. There you go. Amy J. Ease is here. Says, you've tumbled down the rabbit hole when you say back in my day at work. Drew Van Runkle is trying a clip tool, but I don't think clip mustache works. Nice try. Wah, wah. With that. So back to the story. So this is the pattern, right? Hollywood elites trash the country. Then they pack up. They move to Europe if we're lucky. But they still cash American paychecks while lecturing us from afar. And the media will treat them like prophets, like gods. Rosie spreads a dangerous lie about a mass shooting. And then Robin Wright, remember her from back in the day? Everybody seen The Princess Bride, Princess Buttercup. Everybody remembers Princess Buttercup. Great film. Star of Princess Brides, House of Cards. She announced that she has left the United States too. She's living in England now. She's telling the Times of London that America is, quote, a show. Okay, fair. Fair. However, are things really that much better over there in the UK? I saw this clip yesterday. Let me see if I've got it right here. This is this is the kind of government that you get in the UK.
Your lawyers, under your guidance, have said in terms that the rights of asylum seekers are more important than the rights of local people in Epping Forest. Would you at least acknowledge that that is what they will hear? And it's up to you. Ministers can say we agree with that or we don't agree with it. You can't simply say let's balance things. Do you agree with what your lawyers said or don't you?
Yes, of course we do. But
your lawyers under your...
Well, at least she admits it. Live from London. We stand with Gaza in the face of the crimes of genocide and starvation. We say to you, America, we will drink your blood and shake your throne. He should be saying, I will drink your shake. I will drink your milkshake. Should be watching girls twerking and discovering sexuality. Instead, he's preparing for martyrdom. We say to the accursed America, which has nuclear weapons, good, God bless them. By Allah, you're weaker than spider's web. Oh, kid, you're a retard because spider's webs are actually quite strong. Ah, stupid kids. You grew up in a rough part of the world and you had dumb parents, so your life sucks and it's worth nothing. You want to die in an airstrike, kid. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Very politically incorrect. If you are sensitive, you are in the wrong place. I'm sorry. And we have a lot of fun here on the Wake Up America show. We make jokes at everyone's expense, which makes us a little bit of the outcasts. But God bless the outcasts, children of God. Drew Van Runkle hanging out with us. Kermode Bear in the chat. Laissez-faire, bro. It wouldn't be a show without laissez-faire, bro. All right. If you guys want to unlock that bonus content, you're well on the way. It looks like we've raised $50 towards the $75 and $100 bonus content goal. The $75 goal of Rumble rants or in purchases at the shop will unlock the bonus content phase 1. Phase 1 is a mini documentary that we produce for you guys. And if it doesn't get unlocked, it goes away forever. If you guys hit $100, then Breakfast Theater is unlocked and we'll hear from Elmo, who is in hell. Speaking of offending everyone, who will be joining us live this morning to talk about how things have gone to hell since Sesame Street lost their funding from the federal government. It's going to be a fun show, a funny show. But what would it be without St. Louis SeaWorld girl. Yeah, so we're talking about celebrities fleeing to go overseas and how much better things are over there, such as in Germany, for example, where Muslim migrants, speaking to the camera, said, when we become the majority, we will take over Germany by force.
Eine Scharia in Deutschland, das ist Schwachsinn. Jeder, der sich
Den Islam verändern. Du bist für authentischen Islam, so wie er ist.
Jeder, der sich als Muslim bezeichnet, muss die Scharia wollen auf der ganzen Welt. Ich will die Scharia in Deutschland auf jeden Fall.
Anybody who says that they believe in Islam must want Sharia all over the world. I want Sharia in Germany, definitely.
Deutsche Verfassung aushebeln, wenn du die Gelegenheit hättest?
Auf jeden Fall.
Would you nullify the German Constitution? Definitely.
Wie zum Beispiel? Wie könnte man jetzt aus Deutschland einen islamischen Staat machen?
How could you turn Germany to Islamic State?
Wie zum Beispiel?
Laut den Werken ist das so, dass man, wenn man in der Mehrheit ist, wie Sie auch erklärt haben, sind wir dafür
We are ordered to occupy, capture Germany indefinitely, he says.
befohlen, Deutschland einzunehmen, auf jeden Fall.
Also es ist eine islamische Pflicht, auch Deutschland einzunehmen.
Auf jeden Fall, auf jeden Fall.
Ich respektiere deine Ehrlichkeit und du bist ja gegen die
I
Liberalen,
respect your honesty, and you are against those liberals that say,
die jetzt sagen, nein, das stimmt nicht und wir sollen hier in Frieden leben.
Das sind ja Muslime zu sein. Warum?
Es ist eine Auseinandersetzung, wir oder ihr. Entweder ihr übernimmt uns oder wir euch.
Ja,
it's a dispute, us or you. Either you take over us or we take over you. Yes, definitely, and that's why the liberal Islam doesn't exist, he says.
Darum gibt es diesen liberalen Islam, gibt's auch.
And there you have it. Liberal Islam doesn't exist. The fall of Europe. So Rosie O'Donnell, she wants to sip Guinness in Dublin, and Robin Wright wants to drink tea on the English seaside with Durka Muhammad Jihad here. I say, you know what? Good riddance. Don't let the door hit ya where the good Lord split ya. America will be just fine without celebrities who despise us. We got work to do, families to raise, a country to defend, and the left just can't stand that we don't need them. How's that? So the next time you see a headline about a star leaving America because of Trump, just smile and say, well, America's not for sale. America's not a show for Hollywood to script. This is our country, not theirs. If you want a show, tune in to the Wake Up America show, Mondays through Fridays from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. That's the show. If today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, click the like button and the follow button. The follow button will make sure that you are notified on your Rumble app whenever we go live, which is, again, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. We hope that you will become a regular guest if it is your first time. And if you are watching us for like the 177th episode today, for whatever random reason I chose that number, then make sure you click the like button. But you should have done it anyway. It feels so good when you do it. I like it. Oh, thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate you very much. All right, Rosie O'Donnell. So she falsely claimed that the Minneapolis Catholic school shooter was a MAGA Republican. The shooter had killed Donald Trump on the magazine of the gun. Rosie then issues an apology on TikTok, but she had been living in Ireland since Trump's reelection. Robin Wright, remember Princess Buttercup, told the Times of London that she left the U.S. for England, calling America a show. And she said that life abroad has been liberating. Other celebs, including Ellen DeGeneres, Richard Gere, and Lena Dunham, Lena Dunham, they have also threatened to leave America for political reasons because they would much rather hang out with people who say things like this.
We have to destroy the idea of America in our heads, in our neighbors' heads, in our comrades' heads, in everybody's heads in this country. We have to work towards problematizing and getting away from the normalization of the violence of the military-industrial complex that is just baked into these supply chains. And we have to actually present an alternative that is appealing and meaningful to people. We have to
we have to destroy the idea of America, they say. That was the People's Conference for Palestine in Michigan. We have to destroy the idea of America in our heads, our neighbors' heads, and our comrades' heads. That is the ideology, one of the many ideologies opposed to and at war with the ideas of individualism, of liberty itself. And we're going to fight them here on our show. That's why I haven't joined the ranks of the anti-Israel crowds. Yam Ezriel Chai is all I got to say. Atomize the Intifada. Don't globalize it. Atomize it. Laissez-faire bra says there's an endemic of stupidity going on in Hollywood. That is a $5 word, sir.
Can you bless me with something?
Oh, gosh.
Money-wise. Please.
Can you suck it?
What?
So Robin Wright, she says that living life abroad is liberating. Other celebrities have threatened to go. But despite elite disdain for America and our way of life, 24 states have allowed recreational marijuana, and the economy is expanding, and Trump's approval remains strong, which is contradicting the failed American narrative, depending on how you feel about things like that. We're going to talk to Camellia Peterson about the legalization question at 8 a.m. Central Time, just about 25 minutes from now or so. We'll go to Camellia Peterson. And if you guys want to see a sweet little mini documentary, today's is a little bit of a longer one. It's really good. If you guys want to see a little mini documentary today, then make sure you keep those Rumble Rants coming, just like Laissez-faire, bruh. Thank you, bruh. We've raised 52 towards the $75 and $100 bonus content goals. You guys, I wish I could just blurt out so much all of the exciting announcements that we have that are coming out. And I hate to tease you guys, but also I kind of love it. I like to tickle your fancy and other things as well. Your eardrums, don't be disgusting. But we've got so many exciting things that are being built for the For Liberty Network that if you knew what they all were, you would be like, you want to be a part of the For Liberty Network, which means watching the Wake Up America show and all 4 shows on our network so that you can stay ahead of what's going on in the news. What we talk about here on the Wake Up America show will be talked about on other shows later today and on the Lamestream Legacy Media tomorrow. We're going to have a fantastic show today. I've got lots of new guests that I haven't introduced you guys to yet. I was supposed to have one on yesterday. I accidentally booked him yesterday for, because I try and book some of my guests weeks in advance to introduce to you guys. But we're going to have a trade economist, Phil Magnus, joining us on the show tomorrow. He's supposed to be on yesterday. So we've got him on. Judge Andrew Napolitano should be back from vacation. I think he goes abroad during the summer months. And then I think he's coming. He should be back this week. I'll have to double check. So we should hear from him and then Phil Magnus tomorrow, trade scholar, talking about the circuit court ruling that overturned Trump's tariffs and obligated the Trump administration to return the billions of dollars that they stole from us. Some people might take exception to the word steal, but what is taxation? I think we all know exactly what taxation is. And what are tariffs? Well, they are taxation. And taxation is, say it with me, children, theft. Jody Rankin says, Robin Wright is a decent actress whose career got washed up after the House of Cards went viral for Spacey's antics. Isn't that sad? So, questions for the audience on this topic. Should celebrities who leave America for political reasons be taken seriously when they criticize us from abroad? Depends on who it is, maybe. Do you think Rosie's false MAGA shooter claim was an honest mistake, or was it part of a larger smear campaign? And why do so many celebrities call America oppressive while choosing to make money off of American audience? I'm not sure. But what do you think that the real reason is that these elites despise Trump's America so much? Is it that they despise Trump, or do they despise people like you and I? Would you rather Hollywood elites stay and complain, or just leave like Rosie and Robin Wright did? They could go to Belgium, where you can hear things like this.
Qui portent des tissus tentures, je peux donner les références si vous voulez, parce qu'apparemment ça suscite beaucoup d'intérêt. si on dérange tant que ça, si on ne veut même plus nous voir, je veux dire, la région compte 19 communes. Bah, si à Molenbeek, apparemment, c'est invivable, hein, changez de bord, quoi. Allez-y ailleurs.
There you go. Saleha Raiz, politician from Molenbeek. She wants a Europe without Europeans. Anyone who doesn't accept veiled women, anyone who doesn't accept Islam in Belgium can leave. Interesting.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Thanks, Norm. So, yeah, Rosie O'Donnell living in Ireland, and Robin, what's her name, moving to England, moving to European countries where they claim that things are better. Interesting. Celebs, they kind of act like leaving America is a punishment for us. It's actually, we call it addition through subtraction. Am I being right? Hollywood elites think moving to Europe makes them smarter. It actually makes them easier to ignore. But not everybody who's leaving America is some commie looking for a commie country. Some people are actually leaving because there are more capitalistic options in countries, say, for example, like Argentina. A lot of my friends who are like, you know what? Rosie O'Donnell says America is a shit show. He agreed, but not for the reasons that Rosie O'Donnell did. And he moved to Thailand. He's not one of those moved to Thailand guys that you might think. He's not, going over there for the kind of tourism options that, your first thoughts are for like Thai brides or something like that. But he went out there and he started a series of businesses, bars and hostels and things like that. He's kind of become a Thai slumlord. But I can imagine that my buddy who has become an expat himself probably would have been better off and benefited if he had done a little bit more homework about his options of how to get his money out of the United States, save every penny you can. And he didn't want to move to a nation where they're being taken over by Wahajid Hala Mala Durka Muhammad Jihad. And some of my friends are actually wanting to move to Argentina because of Javier Milei. So if you are one of those people who are thinking, it'd be good to have a backup plan, maybe a little farm down south of the border somewhere where if things go to hell and if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez becomes president of the United States, don't laugh. Don't laugh. Gavin Newsom, AOC 2028. You think Americans wouldn't vote for that? I got some bridge stock in the Tuscumbia Bridge Company I'd love to sell you. Then I think you guys need to check out the Expat Money Online Summit. It's hosted by my friend Mikkel Thorup. Latin America is booming with freedom right now. Happening in Guatemala. I think Bolivia is starting to see changes in their economic system. I was reading yesterday, and Bolivia had thrown out their socialists. And, of course, Argentina, his Javier Milei is just killing it down there. Jimmy Joe Patty asked, can I bring my guns to Argentina? I don't know if you can bring them there, but I think you can have them now because of a edict that Javier Milei passed. They've got an election coming up in October. We're going to keep an eye on that, and we are going to keep an eye on that election. And if things start to turn towards the Liberty crowd down there in Argentina, it'll be a fascinating sight to see. I'm going to be speaking on a VIP panel about Trump's Latin America plans and Javier Milei. It's free to attend at expatmoneysummit.com. If you want the VIP experience, you can have it, and then you can have coffee, tea, and me. Use my code Austin. That's my name, AUSTIN. Don't wear it out. 20% off for the VIP ticket over at the Expat Online Money Summit. So if you want to go to the Expat Money Summit, go to expatmoneysummit.com. The first level is free $99. No, it's free. But if you want the VIP experience, then use my name, Austin, and you'll get the executive luxury Austin Peterson VIP experience over at the Expat Money Summit. Sound good? expatmoneysummit.com. Okay, guys. Next topic. All right. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Labor Day. I like to call it Union PR Day because let's be honest, while most of you guys probably were still working, maybe you're still hustling, billing. I was here pretty late last night working on this show. I didn't get the full day off. I did get some time off, but because I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I have to provide value, and I don't get things like days off. It just doesn't exist, right? But who did get the day off yesterday, right? Bureaucrats, government employees, union cronies. The very people who live off of your work and my work, right? And what did they do with their taxpayer-funded day off? Did anybody notice? If you were lucky enough to have a day off, did you happen to see the news? If you didn't, then I would like to see, if you didn't see what happened, I would like to show you, or I guess I don't have that clip right here. I would love to show you, but I don't have it. I'll just have to tell you. It says, show, don't tell, Austin. Dang it, I tried. But the bureaucrats, government employees, union cronies, the people who live off of your work, here's what they did with their taxpayer-funded day off. Did they thank you, the people whose sweat pays their salaries? No. They spent the day marching yesterday through Chicago, New York, and L.A. with brass bands banging on their pots and pans. And then their chicken tacos. I've heard the chicken tacos were just mid. And they were holding up signs about how much they hate Donald Trump. Wah, wah. And then also about how billionaires are ruining America. They called it the workers over billionaires protests. Like, give me a break, guys. Moochers over producers, more like it. Wide angle lens. That's what these protests are. The takers are demanding more from the makers. It's the eternal cry of the parasite. Feed me more, even though I give less. They say Trump is anti-worker. The man who cut middle-class taxes, unleashed $10 trillion in new private investment, created more high-paying jobs than any union boss ever dreamed of, is anti-worker, and wasn't the head of the Teamsters Union at the Republican National Convention this last time? No, what they hate about Trump is that he stripped their power away, right? He exposed their racket, and he let you, the individual, thrive without their permission. They marched for living wages. Let me tell you guys something that unions will never admit. Wages don't come from protests, right? They come from productivity. The reason that a software engineer makes more than a barista isn't because of a picket line. It's because the engineer creates more value. That's economics 101. But these people think that if they shout loud enough in front of Trump Tower, that wealth is going to magically appear in their pockets. And for the very, very small elite few of them who manage to go on to become union bosses or higher level government bureaucracy, too, if they truly join the deep state, then for them that might be true. They will get rich. They all want to be the top socialist. They all want to be the Hugo Chavez's. So yesterday, these protests across the nation, the Ban Billionaires protests, they moaned about the minimum wage, about tipped wages, about how New York's living wage should be above $33 an hour. If you demand $33 an hour for pouring coffee, two things are going to happen. One, no one will hire you. Two, the coffee will cost $20 per cup. And then when that happens, the very workers that they claim to represent will all be out of a job. Congratulations. You've just priced everyone that you're supporting or trying to support. Ostensibly, you've just priced them all out of the market. Now, let's debunk another union myth that labor movement gave us the 40-hour work week. That is wrong. Capitalism did. Technology did. Right? Productivity gains did. As machines and markets made workers more efficient, the standards of living rose. Employees could afford shorter hours and higher pay because they were making more wealth. The unions showed up at the end of the process and to cut the ribbon and take the credit, right? And it's the same with Labor Day itself. They claim that it's a holiday for the workers. It's actually a government handout used to pacify unions. And what do the rest of us get? Right? What are the truck drivers? They drive. The farmers, they farm. The entrepreneurs, they preneur. Entree. They entree the preneur. Enter the preneur. I guess I never thought about it. What the hell does that mean? Yeah, people like ourselves, we have to work on our days off. You don't get to take a break. And we also have things like families and children, right? Unions showed up at the very end of all of these processes of the gains that capitalism made, and they took credit for it. All right. The people who keep America alive, the actual workers, they don't get a parade. They don't show up to ban Trump protests. They have jobs. They're productive. To them, Labor Day is just another day. Right? The bureaucrats, though, with pensions, union bosses with six-figure salaries, the professional protesters with their, quote, homemade signs that show up to these protests, they get to strut around like heroes. Or some of them, being paid protesters, probably did get paid, and they were working yesterday on Labor Day. I guess good for them. Imagine being an unpaid left-wing protester on Labor Day. Can you imagine that job? Like, you got to you talk about workers of the world unite. They're going to have to form a union against the unions. You know what I'm saying? One union in Houston, Texas, demand $23 an hour at the Hilton Hotel. $23 an hour to change sheets and to vacuum hallways. And meanwhile, the entrepreneur, the man who entered the preneur, who built that hotel, the man who built that hotel, mortgaged his house, took the risk, stayed up nights wondering if the business would survive. Who deserves the reward? The man who risked everything, his whole career, his life, maybe even his marriage, maybe his wife would have left him if he failed. Happens all the time. Who deserves the reward? The man who risked everything, or the worker who is demanding a wage that is detached from reality? Can I get an amen on this, guys? Anywhere? Drop an amen in the chat if you agree. Dadbod says he spent his day up before dawn, hit the gym, then did yard work and vehicle maintenance. Well, there you go. That sounds like a nice day. The truth is, though, that Labor Day has become a holiday of envy. The protesters that were out by the millions yesterday, they aren't celebrating work. They're celebrating their resentment. They chant about billionaires, but every single innovation in their lives, the phone, down to the phones that they're complaining on. I always love it when they rant about capitalism on their $5,000 MacBooks that their parents got for them.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
The billionaires who created the products that they use every day, down to the medicine that they take, they came from a capitalist, not a committee, from an inventor, not a union rep. And Ayn Rand said it best: the man who produces while others dispose of his product is a slave. She was right. That's what these protests demand, that you produce and they dispose. You make, they take. You build it, they will come eat it all. Right? You strive and they whine. And if you resist or complain, they call you a fascist. Right? They march on your city. They demand that the National Guard stay home so that the criminals can run free. Look at Chicago. The mayor literally led chants of no troops in Chicago, right? As crime skyrockets. You want to talk about shooters, right? Somebody shoots up a Catholic school. We're talking about it for months on end, right? 20 kids get shot in a normal weekend in Chicago. Nobody bats an eye. Is anybody else noticing this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The man who produces while others dispose of his product is a slave. Right? In Chicago, they'd rather sue Trump than stop murderers. But hey, the brass band, it didn't look good. The marching, they were doing the marching, and even some of the marching band people were doing dances and they were twerking. It was just, we were so enculturated after yesterday's anti-Trump protests. Did you guys feel the culture? There was so much culture. White people, we don't have culture. But there was a lot of culture on display yesterday. So here's my message to the union guys. Labor Day, it's supposed to honor the dignity of work. But what it has become is that it's truly about the entitlement of the takers. The only people who should be celebrated are the ones who actually produced value yesterday. The people who worked yesterday. the small business owner who kept the lights on for their family, the delivery driver who still made his rounds, and we did get a delivery yesterday, the ER nurse who worked a double yesterday, right? Not the union boss, not the bureaucrat, and not the socialist activists demanding that billionaires hand over their wallets. This is my message to the unions directly. You know, you didn't build America. You didn't build that. Anybody remember that one? You got a little union there. You didn't build that. You're not the backbone of America. The individual worker who refuses to be chained up to your racket, that is the real American hero. The entrepreneur who risks it all, that is America's hero. And the billionaire who creates jobs is not your enemy. He is your best friend. And here's the message to you guys. Don't let them guilt you. Do not allow yourselves to be shamed. On this Labor Day, as of yesterday, and next Labor Day, be proud of your labor, the labor that you chose, the labor that you trade freely for wages, the labor that creates wealth. You don't owe the takers a thing. You don't owe the protesters a dime. And you sure as hell don't owe unions your loyalty, because America does not move forward on chants or protests or picket signs or twerking cultural brass bands. It moves forward on the backs of free men and women who choose to produce. And that, my friends, is what the left fears most. A country of makers who don't need them anymore. I don't need you anymore. I don't need you anymore. Do you believe in life after socialism? I can feel something inside yourself. I really don't think you're strong enough to survive, no. Jimmy Joe Patty says, the lefty cosplayers in my union make me cringe. I take pride in providing safer, more skilled work than my non-union competition. Negotiating for a better wage is a form of capitalism. Oh, agreed. And thank you, Jimmy Joe. Quest Fanning says, or asks, would you agree that public sector unions are a far different thing as the incentives are perverse, Jimmy Joe Patty? Interesting. Yes, Doc's here. Smell y'all later. Dad Bod Baboon. Take off, bud. See ya. Thanks for coming. The unique strength of our capitalist system mirrors that of our political ideal here in the United States. By offering opportunity to everyone, it fosters vigorous competition, right? By permitting merit, when it is allowed, to trump entrenched elites, when competition isn't outlawed, our system of capitalism motivates individuals with the plum of fortune. And while adhering to these adages that I'm talking about, these axioms, it is waning in the United States. These elements of this have been present throughout the United States history, and it distinguishes American capitalism from rival versions of capitalism. American capitalism is unique. DJ Glean says, amen. Well, thank you, sir. God be with you. In particular, though, the Jeffersonian origins of our economic system make it uniquely geared toward the individual. Europe has a broad safety net. They have high-speed rail. America has highways, and it has startups. That's the difference between the United States and Europe, right? Nowhere else in the world has innovation thrived as it has here in the United States. Both law and culture helped to shape our capitalism in ways that reflect the spirit of the American Revolution. Quote, no taxation. That was famously a cry of the colonials in Boston. Less well remembered, though, is that the Declaration of Independence charged George III with obstructing immigration. Oh, Stennis going off the rails. No. Here we go. Because back then, newcomers were seen as a spark plug of American enterprise. To state the most basic fact of political democracy, it permits the popular will to override the establishment. Merely another name for what the business professors call, quote, creative destruction. And then what happens? The automobile replaces the horse. Punch cards were voted out of mainframes. It became circuits and motherboards, right? Mini computers, desktops, search engines, and until the next smart fellow decamps artificial intelligence. All of these upheavals occurred in the United States, right? American capitalism also has all of the flaws that come with small d democracy, right? It is intensely market-centric, right? Markets are changeable. They are creatures of popular will. The verdicts of what's popular, those are often dubious. 3 Bitcoins trade for the price of an median American home, for example, right now. That's kind of insane. American politics have always kind of coughed up a veritable laundry ticket, as Fiero LaGuardia used to say, of empty suits and frauds and grifters, along with the occasional statesman. Right? Capitalism has answered with a gallery of patent medicine salesmen, hustlers, snake oil sailors, meme stocks, meme coins, shit coins, and con men, of course. And we're going to have to leave it to future generations to say to really distinguish which speculations that are being occurred in right now were useful. Ambition is a summons to effort. No speculation, no railroads. Those evil speculators. They're speculators. No speculation, no accumulation. Vice Arvil24 says something in the chat, but I can't understand what it means, so I won't read it. Liberty Tonight Show says immigrants are a good thing when they don't get welfare and assimilate. I'll take thousands of Vivek Ramaswamis. Same thing. Agreed. Click the like button if you guys want to support the show. Follow button as well. And welcome to the Wake Up America show. If today is your first time here joining us, we'd be glad to have you become a regular guest on the show. We've raised $52 towards the $75 and $100. Actually, yeah, 55. Actually, 57. Very nice, guys. Thank you very much. We're so close to unlocking the bonus content here on the Wake Up America show. But here's what I suggest that you do if you really want to get that bonus content unlocked. First phase is our mini documentary. Second phase is our breakfast theater, which we have Elmo live on the show this morning. So if you want to hear from Elmo, he will be here if we hit the $100 mark by the end of the show. And since Camellia is like 10 minutes away right now, let's unlock phase 1 of the bonus content so you can watch the mini documentary now instead of commercials. It's way more fun, even though our commercials are pretty fun. But unlock the bonus content now. Here's how I suggest you do it. Somebody just needs to go and buy a box of the most popular Wake Up America shows coffee. Jeffersonian Java is available for sale at forlibertyshop.com, and it is the #1 coffee in the shop. My top 3 favorite coffees: Jeffersonian Java, Franklin's Electric Elixir, Thomas's Painkiller Coffee. The cool thing about this is that it's kind of like Pokemon. You want to collect them all because the boxes are beautiful. Jeffersonian Java is the #1 seller, I think, because we have so many Jeffersonians who follow, like, and support the show and the channel and our grift shop. Look at that beautiful box with the image of Monticello there and a nice, gorgeous art design on the box. The coffee itself, also delicious. And you can see that I ain't lying, because if you check the reviews, then you'll see that this has got 4.8 out of 5 stars. People love it. It's a light roast, which means it's got lots of caffeine. Franklin's Electric Elixir was my favorite until Thomas's Painkiller came along. But check out the reviews. 4.9 stars, 4.8, 4.8. People aren't big fans of the Revolutionary Roast, apparently, 4.1, but they do love Patriotic Perk and Madisonian Morning Coffee, as well as Revere's Rebel Roast and many of the other items in our Founding Flavors coffee shop. So check out the Liberty Shop at forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4, libertyshop.com. And if you guys want to unlock that bonus content to watch instead of commercials, then head over to the shop right now and get yourself something real nice. The Malay San Shogun of Liberty shirt, also very nice. A lot of people very excited to buy that shirt. We sold those things all over the place, including to Japan. And then when a Japanese person posted this shirt that I made, Javier Malay shared it, and then people from all over the world started buying this shirt. Shogun of Liberty, Malay San Samurai shirt. And thank you to Joel Lattimore, who just bumped us up to now $62 raised. Remember, if we hit 75 during the commercial break, I will immediately flip over to the bonus content during that break, and then we'll go to Camellia. What do you guys say? You guys ready? Okay. Thank you, Andy Opperman. All right, guys. So just Andy Opperman says, this honestly has nothing to do with Jefferson, although I'm a huge fan. This is just the best damn coffee I've ever had. I drink it every day and I feel mistreated if I go without it. I feel the same way, Andy. If I don't have Founding Flavors coffee, if I drink diner coffee or something like that, it's always like, oh God, I have to put like sugar and cream in it and stuff like that. So if you're a coffee lover, the Jeffersonian Java is absolutely delicious. But the top three, Jeffersonian Java, Franklin's Electric Elixir, and Thomas's Painkiller, and the customer reviews will prove it. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to go get Camellia. We're going to go to a commercial break since we're at 64, thanks to Andy. All we need is $11 more, and that will unlock the bonus content, something like that. 66, so or like $9 more, and we'll unlock that bonus content. We'll be right back with Camellia Peterson talking about legalizing the weed on the Wake Up America shows for Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive.
Tariffs that President Donald Trump purported to impose under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit did not settle the question of whether that law authorizes import taxes, nor did it uphold the injunction that the Court of International Trade, CIT, issued against the tariffs on May 28th. But the Federal Circuit agreed with the CIT that the tariffs are unlawful, and its reasoning highlights the audacity of Trump's claim that IEPA empowers him to completely rewrite tariff schedules approved by Congress. The decision addresses two challenges to Trump's tariffs, one brought by several businesses and one filed by a dozen states. Both sets of plaintiffs argued that Trump had illegally seized powers that belong to Congress. The Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. And although Congress has delegated that authority to the President in numerous statutes, the Federal Circuit notes in an unsigned opinion joined by 7 members of an 11-judge panel, it has always used clear and precise terms to do so, reciting the term duties or one of its synonyms. Furthermore, Congress always has imposed well-defined procedural and substantive limitations on the President's tariff powers. IEPA, by contrast, neither mentions tariffs or any of its synonyms, nor has procedural safeguards that contain clear limits on the President's power to impose tariffs. Yet under Trump's reading of the statute, it empowers him to impose any tariffs he wants against any country he chooses for as long as he deems appropriate, provided he perceives an unusual and extraordinary threat that constitutes a national emergency, and avers that the import taxes will deal with that threat. To justify his tariffs, Trump declared 2 supposed emergencies, one involving international drug smuggling and the other involving the U.S. trade deficit. The former emergency, he said, justified punitive tariffs on goods from Mexico, Canada, and China, with the aim of encouraging greater cooperation in the war on drugs. The latter emergency, he claimed, justified hefty, ever-shifting taxes on imports from dozens of countries, which he implausibly described as reciprocal, leaving aside the question of whether it makes sense to characterize drug trafficking and trade imbalances, both of which are long-standing phenomena, as unusual and extraordinary threats. Trump's attempted power grab is striking even for him. Since IEPA was promulgated almost 50 years ago, past presidents have invoked IEPA frequently, the Federal Circuit notes. But not once before has a president asserted his authority under IEEPA to impose tariffs on imports or adjust the rates thereof. Rather, presidents have typically invoked EPA to restrict financial transactions with specific countries or entities that the president has determined pose an acute threat to the country's interests. Trump claims to have discovered a heretofore unnoticed tariff power in an IEEPA provision that authorizes the president to regulate importation. And that power, he avers, is not subject to any procedural and substantive limitations, except for the pro forma requirement that he declare a national emergency based on a foreign threat. As the Federal Circuit dryly observes, it seems unlikely that Congress intended, in enacting IEEPA, to depart from its past practice and grant the president unlimited authority to impose tariffs. Trump's assertion of that authority runs afoul of the major questions doctrine, the Federal Circuit says. According to the Supreme Court, that doctrine applies when the executive branch asserts powers of vast economic and political significance. In such cases, the government must point to clear congressional authorization for that asserted power, the appeals court notes. The tariffs at issue in this case implicate the concerns animating the major questions doctrine, as they are both unheralded and transformative. The Supreme Court has explained that where the government has never previously claimed powers of this magnitude, the major questions doctrine may be implicated. The Federal Circuit was unimpressed by the government's citation of United States versus Yoshida International, a 1975 case in which the now-defunct Court of Customs and Patent Appeals approved a 10% import surcharge that President Richard Nixon had briefly imposed in 1971 under the Trading with the Enemy Act, TWEA. Although Nixon relied on a different statute, the government's lawyers noted, the court concluded that the phrase regulate importation in TWEA encompassed tariffs. Even assuming that conclusion was correct, the Federal Circuit says, Yoshida does not hold that TWEA created unlimited authority in the president to revise the tariff schedule, but only the limited temporary authority to impose tariffs that would not exceed the congressionally approved tariff rates. Trump, by contrast, claims IEEPA gives him carte blanche to set tariffs, regardless of what Congress has said. The government's expansive interpretation of regulate is not supported by the plain text of IEEPA, the Federal Circuit says. The government's reliance on the ratification of our predecessor court's opinion in Yoshida does not overcome this plain meaning. The appeals court adds that the government's understanding of the scope of authority granted by IEEPA would render it an unconstitutional delegation. 4 judges agreed with the majority that IEEPA does not grant the president authority to impose the type of tariffs imposed by the executive orders. But they went further in a separate opinion, arguing that the statute does not authorize the president to impose any tariffs at all. As Reason's Eric Boehm notes, the appeals court nevertheless vacated the CIT's injunction and remanded the case for further consideration in light of the Supreme Court's June 27th decision in Trump versus Casa. In that June 27th ruling, the court questioned universal injunctions that judges had issued in 2 birthright citizenship cases, to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to provide complete relief to each plaintiff with standing to sue. Although the Supreme Court held that the universal injunctions at issue likely exceed the equitable authority Congress has granted to federal courts, the Federal Circuit notes, it declined to take up, in the first instance, arguments as to the permissible scope of injunctive relief. Instead, it instructed the lower courts to move expeditiously to ensure that, with respect to each plaintiff, the injunctions comport with this rule and otherwise comply with principles of equity as outlined in the opinion. We will follow this same practice. On remand, the Federal Circuit says, the CIT should consider in the first instance whether its grant of a universal injunction comports with the standards outlined by the Supreme Court in Casa. The CIT, in other words, is tasked with deciding what sort of order is appropriate to grant the plaintiffs complete relief. Alternatively, as Boehm suggests, Congress could intervene by asserting the tariff authority that Trump is trying to usurp.
Never say, you're stupid. It is far too rude, far too blunt. If you wish to sound more elegant, use one of these better alternatives. Number 1, I should not wish to fatigue your mind with particulars. Number 2, I should not trouble you with matters of complexity. Number 3, it is plain you speak from the heart rather than the head. Number 4, you have the enviable gift of simplicity. Number 5, I admire your confidence in the absence of knowledge.
I used one yesterday, and I said, wisdom has been chasing you, but alas, you are too fast for it to catch up.
Never
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. I just wanted to smile when the camera comes up, and I thought a good joke would be a good way to do it. And there she is, smiling, happy as it gets. Camellia Peterson, what's happening? Hi, CJ.
Hey, good morning.
Phase 3 of bonus content. Maybe we will soon. We're almost to phase 2. We've raised $81, so phase 1 was unlocked. We're almost to level 2. If we hit $100 raised by the end of the show, then Elmo will appear. He's in hell, and he'll be joining us live from hell. Camellia, welcome to the Wake Up America show. Speaking of going to hell, marijuana's. It's illegal here in Missouri federally, but it's legal on the state level. None of this makes any stinking sense. Trump has said that he would consider descheduling it, rescheduling it, but many people on the right are very angry about this. They don't want Trump to do it. Roger Stone says yes, but the woke right says no. What is your thoughts on this question of federal versus state?
It's really fascinating to see the right vacillating on this issue, because really it seems like the prevailing opinion on the right maybe 2-3 years ago was like descheduling it, and was kind of more leaning towards, especially medical legalization, but also like trending towards, full legalization as well, or maybe at least not criminalizing it, right? So interesting to see. There has been this trend on the right, going way back more toward the like moral majority type approach to things, which does not work. But anyway, yeah. So it's made it difficult. I think this is a case of there's been such a demand for legalization at the state level that the states have responded to that and have defied federal law in order to do so, which, I mean, it's these United States, right? I mean, I think that we can ask the question, does the federal government have a role in saying whether or not, in making drugs legal or illegal, right? I mean, I think there's a conversation to be had there, and I think there's some legitimate points that are made about whether marijuana is different than it was, 20 years ago, those sort of things.
Let me interrupt for just a second. THC levels in the 1970s averaged under 2%. Today, the flower that you buy at the local shops is 15 to 20% THC. And if they extract it, which they do now quite frequently, the extracts can actually exceed 80 to 90% potency. Not sure if that changes the calculation on this. What do you think?
I mean, there's people will often compare it to, clearly, I don't think that there's a comparison to heroin, right? So it's currently in the same category as heroin. However, you do see a lot of people compare this to alcohol, and this is like, the potency is like going from a beer to like a shot of pure grain alcohol, right? I mean, that's fine, but pure grain alcohol is still legal. Like you can, you
can drink it.
Right, to your own detriment, maybe. I mean,
little jungle juice won't hurt you. It's college experience.
I mean, moderation and everything, right? I think you could make that
including
argument
moderation
for many things,
including moderation. So studies link high potency cannabis to psychosis, schizophrenia, memory impairment, cognitive decline, especially for adolescent users. Camellia, what would you say to that?
I mean, I do think, and I do agree that we have to have guardrails and laws in place so that minors don't have access. We have those laws for all kinds of things. And I think that when it comes to protecting children in our society, like that is, I think that that is a reasonable thing to do. I think that's a libertarian thing to do.
So like you can't smoke it in public?
Oh, because of like secondhand or whatever? Is that what you're...
Sure. I mean, if somebody blows a giant smoke cloud of cigarette smoke in my daughter's face, my baby's face somewhere, I might be like, hey, would you mind like just doing that somewhere else?
Sure. No, I think, well, and I mean, this kind of gets us back to the whole public square argument, right? But I do think that, yes, if we are in, oh boy, here we go. We live in a society. But it is true. Like, we do have to find a way to live with each other. And I think if you are in common public, quote unquote, spaces, that you do need to be considerate of the people around you. And if you are doing things that are harmful to people around you just for your own reasons or pleasure, then yes, that is a problem. And I do not take the anarchist, pure libertarian, whatever view that there's no such thing as a public space and you can do what you want, as long as you're not physically like touching someone else. Like that's not.
But my right to swing my fist ends at your nose. The federal government regulates alcohol content in liquor. Should the federal government regulate THC potency like it regulates alcohol content?
I think we need to ask the question why the federal government is doing the regulating on this. Should this not be a state's issue?
Yeah, I thought you said you weren't an anarchist, Camellia.
I mean, I'm not, but these United States, the federal government is supposed to have a limited role in what you do, and it is just to protect this collaboration of states as a whole, right? It's not to dictate every single thing that these United States do.
Okay, good answer. It's time for us to switch topics. I'm speaking to Camellia Peterson here on the Wake Up America show. Don't forget to click the like button and support the show with a follow as well if today's your first time here. We're going to shift gears to another big story the mainstream media doesn't want you to think too hard about. We've all known for years that big tech and the Democratic Party walk hand in hand, but now it's exposing this dark money group. Democrats always scared, dark money, dark money. You're a lobbyist. You know what it's like to be accused of dark money ties. The Democrats and big tech have been working hand in hand for years, but now it's been exposed that a dark money group tied to the Democrats is literally paying influencers, TikTok stars, Instagram personalities up to $8,000 a month. Can you imagine? Just to push left-wing talking points. They're called the Chorus, or maybe they call it Chorus Creator Incubator Program, funded by the 1630 Fund, the same progressive mega fund that pumped hundreds of millions into Democrat campaigns. So they're not volunteers. They're not like authentic voices of a new generation. They're kind of paid actors. Camellia, what do you think about this? The 1630 Fund, Democrats' biggest dark money machines. They now bankroll more than 90 influencers with stipends up to $8,000 a month. What's your take on this story?
I mean, it might be an unpopular opinion, but we are the media. Okay, so this is, I don't view this as anything different than paying for advertising on TV. This is literally advertising, but on the internet. And it's just, it looks different because you have to reach the audience that you need to reach. Like, it's not like TV where, you had just like these select few stations that everybody in the nation saw, right? Now it's much more fragmented online where there's a lot more niche groups and everybody has a little bit different reach. And so, yes, they utilize a lot of different influencers. This is done on the right as well. You and I have both gotten requests to post things. Even my account on Twitter is not that big, but it's like even I have gotten requests from, influential names like to post things and with, saying, hey, I'll do this for you or whatever. So, I mean, it's done across the board. Like I said, I just view it as advertising, and the whole dark money thing, well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's probably arguments that can be made when it comes to politics. Like, my problem with disclosure of donation type things is whether or not it's actually using taxpayer funds without their consent. If we are talking about using taxpayer funds, if there's a group that's using taxpayer funds without their consent, I think that's a different issue. But whether it's political, whether it's nonprofit, whatever it is, if you, I think people should have an expectation of privacy with where you put your money. Like, it doesn't matter. And that means that these people, Soros or whatever else, I mean, that means those Soros-backed groups, yeah, that means privacy for them too. I mean, what's the alternative? Because the problem is I know that the target, when a lot of people say that you shouldn't have this privacy and dark money and whatever, they're talking about, George Soros, and they're talking about Elon Musk and the billionaires and the millionaires. And, but, if it applies to them, why doesn't it apply to the little people, right? Because there are lots and lots of people who are not millionaires and billionaires who freely give of their own money to, charitable causes, but also to political causes that they believe in. So
I think I disagree with you on the first part of what you said here, because you're talking about, it's no different than advertising on television. I do think it is different from advertising on television, because I think that these quote unquote dark money groups, they don't want people to know what their intentions are. And while marketing for television can sometimes be, I could say maybe often can be misleading, or it can be outright deceitful, I think when it has a political intent, I think that does change it to some extent, because these influencers want us to believe that they are authentic voices representing their own ideas and their own ideals. But I think in what we've seen on the right is that it's not just Americans who are weighing in on these things. There are foreign countries who are getting involved in here, Camellia, and some of the money, and I would venture a significant part of the money that comes into comes into American influencers, comes from Chinese sources, some Russian sources. There's a lot of, when I say dark money, there's a lot of money, I think, that's foreign money that's at play here. And I do think that that's a concern that needs to be addressed. I'm not sure how to address it, but I do think that is one of the parts of the concern, is not just that the Democratic National Committee is funding these people openly. That would be one thing. But I want to know if, for example, when Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and a handful of other right-wing influencers got money from Russia, I want to know that, because how can you not be influenced if somebody started giving you $15,000 or $8,000 a month? How can you not be influenced by that? And we call it audience capture in the business. Isn't that a concern? And isn't that something that could be addressed by more transparency when it comes to things like this?
Yes and no. I think that, foreign propaganda has been an issue for a very long time, right? I mean, they have always found ways to propagandize in the United States. The problem with this is that you know as well as I do that as soon as you make it illegal or you make it more difficult, they will find other ways to do it. I agree that we should not make it easy, I think there's a very reasonable argument to be made for making it illegal for direct foreign funding of, anything to do with politics in the United States. What I don't know how you get around without really infringing on the rights of the individual citizen in this country is, how do you get around them just funneling money through other things? I mean, they can follow all kinds of, rabbit trails to get money to where they want it to go. I mean, if there's a will, there's a way. I mean, the more election laws that are really campaign laws, I guess, that we put into place, the more creative ways they find to get around them, and you end up with less transparency. transparency than what you started with. So I don't think there is an easy answer to this, but I think that we have to be very, very careful with how far down that road we go, because then it does start to affect you and me. And it does start to affect, because you could draw all these lines and say, oh, there's some sort of connection, foreign connection to this. They can start making those claims about good organizations who are doing good things, but all of a sudden somebody has some connection with somebody in another country, and they're saying, oh, foreign funding, can't do that, even though there's not actually any foreign funding. I'm just saying, it's like Pandora's box in a lot of ways.
No, I get it, and I completely understand, and I've been, a part of this game for years. I understand sort of how the money sloshes its way through the chutes, but in terms of what the Democrats are doing now, there is another opinion on this one. For example, the influencer Hannah Cox, mutual friend of ours, she has come out and said that honestly, the Republicans should be doing things like this, and so should the Libertarians. They should be funding their next level of influencers in order to grow the media presence of the people that share their ideas and their ideals. And that shouldn't just be held exclusively within the Trump family itself, which at some point that wealth has been concentrated, extremely concentrated. It should be spread out a little bit more. And we should do something like this on the right. In other words, more dark money flowing, but to our people and our friends. How would you respond to that?
Right. And I think that is because this is the new marketing war, right? I mean, it's always been about marketing in so many ways. And so this is just kind of the next iteration of that in our society and the world. And so, yes, why would we, how else do you get the word out? And the truth is that people are self-interested. And as much as we would like to think that the major players or the influencers or people who have built up these audiences online are just going to do these things out of the goodness of their hearts. I mean, even they may agree with us, but that doesn't mean that they have the bandwidth to do nothing, that they didn't get to where they are by just being charitable. So I think that, there's nothing wrong with, reimbursing someone or paying them to do the work to get these messages out. It's literally advertising. It's no different, in my opinion anyway, than going and placing ads on the radio. Now, I mean, I don't know, maybe you could talk about whether or not, they have to say, oh, this is a paid blah, 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 whatever. I don't know about that. I do think that eventually, the internet catches up with whether or not someone, an influencer, is disingenuous about it. And I think we've seen it several times lately, right? There have been many examples. So I do think that comes out and comes back to bite you if it's not authentic with you. And the thing is it is not when someone who is an influencer, and especially I think on the right, very blatantly does a paid advertisement, people actually don't respect that because it does not resonate the same. And I think a good example of that was, did you see Riley Gaines here not too long ago in the last couple of weeks in her ivermectin ad?
Yeah, she did.
Everybody was like, what are you doing? Right? I mean,
well, it was out of the, it was completely out of the blue. She did an ivermectin ad or something like that. Yeah.
It was on Twitter, and even people who liked her were like, this is not the way to do this.
She probably got a fat paycheck, man. I can imagine.
But it was so obvious, right? I mean, it was just like an ad. There was nothing I personally found this, there was no Right. Boy, it's tricky, man. And as much, that's why I really just love the community fundraising in a way, because it keeps my hands clean to a large extent, although the big money does come from the advertisements that I read into the show. And there's always this big question about, they used to call it pay for play in the radio industry, or they called it payola, where it was if the record people, record companies would pay radio stations to play certain songs rather than having them do it organically. It was called payola. It became a big deal back in the day. There was all these exposures that were done on it. And then there was a lot of reform of the radio industry, but there's
here in the podcast world, it's sort of a free for all. If you have a huge audience, somebody's going to approach you to sell something. I'll tell you that I have turned down advertising. I have turned down ads for things that I don't believe in, or that I think are snake oil or a problem, something like that. Sure. I have done ivermectin live reads and ads, and I'll say that I don't personally believe in it for myself. It's not something that I would take, but I don't have a problem selling it because some people claim that it offers them all of these benefits and things, and it is a drug that's for medical use for certain purposes. And I think that it's possibly up in the air. So I don't have like a moral qualm about selling it. It's kind of like selling a product that I wouldn't necessarily use. It's like, if I sold Pokemon cards in my shop and I made millions of dollars, I don't play Pokemon necessarily, but I would still sell the cards. So, but there is a lot of shadiness. And people approach me with shady supplement offers and all these things that I know are just like, they just make expensive urine at the end of the day. And I turn all those down. Actually, somebody offered me a crazy amount of money to promote supplements. And I was just like, nah, I can't do that. I just really don't feel comfortable about it. So it's really hard to maintain your integrity. And it gets harder and harder the bigger you get. And most people, it reminds me of that old Abraham Lincoln quote where he says, any man can be tested with money, but if you really want to test his character, give him power. Because once you have a big enough audience, there's a lot of power and a lot of money, but people really, they care about money, but they actually care about power a lot more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like that's, and I think that also kind of is right along the lines of the whole attention is currency thing, right? Because, their power and influence over people and the attention that comes along with that, those tickle a different part of your brain than just having, money and being able to buy things. Like you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the influence to go along with that, and some people choose not to do that. Lots of people, right, have plenty of money, but they don't need that other part of that power to fulfill some need in their life for that. But I do think that, this is, in some ways, I think that part of what goes along with this when we talked about the digital age is our adaptation to that. And I think that, kids today are not nearly as susceptible to advertising as kids would have been, 20, 30 years ago. I think that they have learned to view things that they see online with skepticism. And so, this is kind of part of the world we live in now, is you have to just be much more astute and observant and skeptical and test everything, which, there is somewhat of a downside to that as well. But I would certainly prefer this to just this gullibility of accepting everything that an influencer says, right? I mean, to me, that's just crazy.
Camellia Peterson, she's not crazy. Camellia, what are you working on these days that you want to share with our audience?
I personally am gearing up for election season in my work, and then also in the next legislative session. Missouri is getting ready to go into an extraordinary session this week because the president has decided that we need an extra Republican Congress member. And so there are a lot of people on both sides of that, but it will get done. And they will do that between this week and next week. So they will redraw the districts in Missouri, the congressional districts. So the map has been handed down and they will do their duty. But I will say that one of the things that goes along with this that you and I have talked about briefly before, just for people in Missouri here, we will have initiative petition reform as part of the special session, which is, and for your audience, people who are in other states probably don't realize this, and you probably don't have this in your state, where you can go, anybody can go, and if you gather enough signatures, you can get something put on the ballot, and it only has to pass by a simple majority. And so that has led to Missouri passing some really crazy laws, because when you talk about this, foreign money or, outsized influence from billionaires or whatever, we've had a lot of leftist policies really pushed by outside money on our ballot. And so, that does need to be addressed. So we're going to be doing that. So it's a mess. There is never any lack of drama here in Missouri in political circles. And hey, Eric Greitens may be making a comeback. What do you know?
Eric Greitens.
Oh God.
That's a name I've not heard in a long, long time. Camellia Peterson, thank you for all you do for liberty here in the state of Missouri and beyond. Because when you're on the Wake Up America show, you're on a national show, but you're working on the local level to make Missouri liberty again. Thank you for everything you do. We'll see you again real soon.
Good day, everyone.
Speaking of foreign influence campaigns,
Ruth Westman-Lander is with me in the studio. So, Ruth, I mean, people who hate Israel, people who have conspiracy theories about Israel, say that it uses its wealth, its influence over American politicians. You see this allegation a lot on the right of the American political system these days. Qatar is openly doing that. Nobody seems bothered about it at all.
Qatar is doing it.
Well, Qatar owns a little bit more than a third of London already, and is very obviously influencing decision-making in the UK, not to mention other strongholds in Europe. Of course, in the US, the infiltration has been very, very deep, has been done over a very long period of time. This has been orchestrated, by the way, in a lesson that could honestly be a model for emulation for Machiavelli himself, by Sheikha Moza, the mother of the Emir of Qatar, in an extraordinarily sophisticated and smart manner over years and years. And apart from the fact that, honestly, this is absolutely mind-boggling in terms of how sophisticated it really is, it's actually working. And the infiltration is, in fact, not only into schools, not only into colleges, not only into soccer clubs, not only into think tanks, but also into politicians and decision-making circles. And it's very, very scary.
Yeah, very, very scary stuff. Interesting. I'll read a thread to you that I posted yesterday. I had to stop going to anti-war rallies when I realized that there were maybe 6 libertarians, 6,000 communists, and half a dozen foreign agents at these rallies. Once I realized this, I set out to figure out how it got this way. What I discovered might shock you. In 2007, let's go way back, I started volunteering for Ron Paul's presidential campaign. I was one of the leaders of the 1,000 plus strong New York City Ron Paul Tea Party groups. We were the #1 meetup fundraiser for the Ron Paul campaign. We raised the most money of all of the meetups across the country. Half of the staff that worked there with me, all volunteers, left when the newsletters dropped and Ron Paul lost Iowa. This is 2008. I was a little demoralized, I remember at the time, but I kept at it. I kept pushing Paul. And for 2012, for his presidential campaign, I was actually the person who set up the camera and the live interview for him to make his official announcement on Freedom Watch. Was on my show. I set it all up, talking in Ron Paul's ear, getting the crowd, everything all set up. That was your boy here, AP. I kept pushing Ron Paul, and because the policies were good, even if there were a bunch of cranks and kooks on the edges of the movement, the policies were still good. But there were a lot of people who, on the edges of the liberty movement, were saying a lot of unlibertarian things. And then I went to work for the Libertarian Party in 2008, and then at Atlas, and then Fox Business, right? And I made friends with Laura Loomer. That's when I met her, and we got to be friends back in the day. And from, after working my heart out for Paul in 2008 and then 12, I went on to stump for his son, Rand Paul, for president in 2016. And then when I was kind of getting exasperated at the progress of the liberty movement, this was supposed to be the libertarian moment. I tossed my hat in the ring for the Libertarian Party nomination in 2016. You all know the rest of that story. But over these years, I have spent deep in the U.S. liberty movement, doing favors for people, participating in fundraising initiatives. I mean, I did support Gary Johnson before I ran against him. There was a day in 2008 where I stood outside a grocery store and I was handing out petitions trying to get people to sign for putting libertarians on the ballot in Virginia. One of the funniest things that happened to me that day was that an IRS agent that I talked to, she said if she signed the petition, she'd be going against her own interests, wouldn't she? Then I thought that was a good point. So she didn't give me her signature. They know liberty's against their interests. So I've been to every liberty event that there is. I've been to protests and the Fed protests. I've organized protests, rallies, fundraisers, campaign events, and always was this nagging question in the back of my mind. Why is it that the U.S. liberty movement and its figures is so popular with Russian propaganda channels? So at first, when I went on Russia Today, RT, as it's known, I saw this as a really great opportunity personally to get some exposure for my ideas and to kind of do battle with the communists anchors that they had over there, or just to do my part to spread the liberty message, right? The archives of all of these interviews and debates that I participated are all out there on YouTube. Right? I pretty much defend everything I said, and I think I had some of my finest moments thrashing that old commie Tom Hartman. Everybody seen some of those? But something was wrong. Why did Russia Today at the time have an interest in not only platforming libertarians like myself as guests, but they even gave one of us our own show. Adam versus the Man is what this show was called. It was sort of a hit for them at the time for a brief period. Adam would pull stunts. He got knocked out by the cops at the Jefferson Memorial for dancing. It got a lot of press. I booked Adam on Fox Business to discuss that with Judge Andrew Napolitano. I also booked a lot of other prominent libertarians at the time around 2010 to 2012. And I connected libertarians with conservatives like Sarah Palin in order to help both groups try to bridge their ideals. So we had a Tea Party summit back in 2010, and the Tea Parties kicked off in earnest. It was Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Sarah Palin, get them together on set and produce Freedom Watch and try and build the Tea Party movement. And we won't go down that rabbit hole per se, but it became glaringly obvious at that time to me that something was going on. One American anchor who worked at Russia Today, who I knew, Liz Wall, she quit her job because she felt that there was a conflict of interest as a patriotic American to be working for Russian state-funded television. And I applauded her for that at the time, and she got in a lot of trouble with her former friends on that network, of course, Putin's network. Another anchor who worked there, even though she was a legitimate communist, dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore leftist communist, worked at Russia Today, even she could tell that she was being used as a propaganda arm for the Russian state, and that this was the time around 2014 where the first Russian incursion into Ukraine occurred, and this anchor left Russia Today because despite being allowed to spout communist propaganda, you can't spout anti-war propaganda when it's Vladimir Putin's war. Oh yes, L-Dubs, I've got a lot of Adam Kokesh stories. Around this time, when I was working at Fox, I was introduced to a man by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer. You may have seen him on the show a few times if you're a regular viewer. He was the author of a book called Operation Dark Heart. This was a book that the Obama administration redacted and destroyed. And then Schaefer introduced me to a concept known as, quote, active measures. Look it up. It's very interesting. Active measures is how the Russian government uses disinformation campaigns to essentially lobotomize the American people. Russia Today was only one part of their culture jamming that they engaged in. We used to call PSYOPs culture jamming. More recently, Russia has gotten into the American influencer game. One major stated goal is to spread conspiracy theories amongst the American people, which has gotten more easy than ever thanks to social media, boomer book, right? But this isn't new. KGB general by the name of Vasily Mitroshkin, his book, The Sword and the Shield, revealed how Soviets spread the JFK assassination theories using active measures. Now, Russia has a good friend in the circle surrounding Ron Paul, specifically Daniel McAdams, who is actively rooting for Russia to win, including and especially in their measures against the United States. McAdams and his band of merry traitors see the United States and Israel as the great Satan. The only ideological differences between them and, say, Osama bin Laden are their preferred religious motives and the tactics that they use. And now the U.S. libertarian movement and now even the conservative movement on the right have begun being key allies to then Soviet, now Russian operations. And whether it was Oswald was tied to a known CIA agent in Dallas, that was from the Matryoshkin archives, or that 9/11 was an inside job, which Russia Today propagated, American libertarians have internalized and amplified these active measures. Many of them are not doing so because they are bad people. They are good people who, in being misinformed and disinformed, do bad things, like many others. In conclusion, the American libertarian movement has been subverted by foreign agencies and anti-American propaganda. Anti-war is a position that is sincerely held, but it is a minority of even U.S. libertarians, since many cheer for the invasion of Russia into Crimea. They're not non-interventionist when Russia does it. Their foreign policy is nearly identical to communists like Howard Zinn, when it's not suggesting that Osama bin Laden made a few good points, right? The right libertarians criticize the left libertarians for being woke, and they're right, but they completely miss the irony that their own communistic foreign policy is also woke because it fits neatly within the postmodern framework, the lefty framework, woke. The world is seen as oppressors and oppressed. Who are the oppressors? The United States and Israel. Who are the oppressed? The Gazans, the Palestinians, Hamas, poor little freedom fighters, Russia, poor little Russia, poor little Russia. They are the victims of NATO. They are not actors on their own. They are the poor victims of American imperialism. Leftist or libertarian? It gets harder and harder to tell the difference, especially when the Israel question comes up. These days, I find myself personally reading more Richard Nixon. I read more Ronald Reagan. As the Republican Party moves away from Reagan, I find myself moving closer and closer towards Ronald Reagan. These days, I find more ism in them. I recommend that you read more from them. It's not that there's no conspiracies. Certainly, the Matryoshkin archives revealed the KGB engages in conspiracies. The CIA engages in conspiracies, right? But the people who have devoted themselves in this, especially the podcasting platform, the people who devote themselves full time to conspiracies, they tend to be the biggest pawns in somebody else's games. Now, many libertarians, when I say things like this, they get angry at me. They lash out at me. They call me mean names. They say I'm a neocon, right? But they call me that because they don't know fuck all about who Leo Strauss was or what Eugene von Bombewerk discovered. They don't know dick about what Mises thought about immigration. Instead of reading up on Austrian economics, they watched Loose Change version 23.6, the final missile on the Pentagon. And they got high instead of reading Austrian economics. And I can't be bothered to buy this anymore. And I'm going to forge ahead and I'm going to create a new libertarian way of thinking in the United States. More Nozick, Robert Nozick, less Murray Rothbard. I'll call it Malayism, right? The most popular and successful libertarian of all time is Javier Milei. And his revolution in Argentina has broadened the cracks between the Russians and their paid and organic U.S. active measures. Milei has a pro-U.S. and pro-Israel especially stance that has broadened support for rational foreign policy views among people who adhere to Austrian economic views like myself. Milei may end up saving U.S. libertarianism from itself and the slow collapse into irrelevance it's had since 2016. Wow, we are at $90 raised. 10 more bucks will unlock the bonus content, guys. I'm going to take a quick little break, and when we get back, hopefully we'll have Elmo here if we raise 10 more bucks. Speaking of influencer campaigns.
His best friend was at his house all the time.
I swear.
Who's hanging out with the prime minister? Who's hanging out with the prime minister of the country? So you're not just Joe Blow.
Take it down.
No, I just get so mad because you guys are just so thick. It's like
just because we don't agree with you, chill
it's
out.
Not that you don't have to agree with me. It's that she's saying that he's hanging out with the prime minister, and you're looking at me like I'm crazy because I think that he might work for the government if he's hanging out with the prime minister. You're the one gaslighting me. I'm not the crazy.
I'm not gaslighting anyone.
That's what we call active measures right there. Primetime Alex Stein. Wittingly or not. We'll be right back with more. If we raise 10 more bucks, we get Elmo in hell. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Alcatraz, the fence keeps them in. But slip up, and you're on my plate.
Looks like breakfast is making a run for it. We got 3 hot meals trying to check out early from Alligator Alcatraz.
They can splash, they can sprint, but there's no escaping Alligator Alcatraz. Caught 2. The third? Huh. The swamp's got its own way of catching runaways.
Mama was wrong. Gators don't need toothbrushes. Just an honest job making America great again.
Patriots US Open that went viral for the wrong reasons. So tennis star signs a hat for the kid, and then out of nowhere, a grown man snuck it, stole it, swiped it from the kid, snatched it away. And that man turned out to be a Polish CEO by the name of Piotr Szewczak. Yeah, a millionaire, the head of a paving stone company, literally ripping a souvenir out of a child's hands on international television live. That video made him the villain of the week. He's been roasted online, called everything from a common thief to a sack of garbage. And now, after days of outrage, he's finally apologized. He said it was a serious mistake. Sure, it was. And he called it a necessary lesson in humility. He was humiliated. Asshat stole the hat, says Entropy Nomad. Entropy. Guys, did I get my math wrong on the bonus content? I thought it was... Did Frickety do it? Did he unlock it? Okay. Sorry. It's really hard to do all this at the same time and do quick math and talk about the show and have the guests on and push all the buttons, make the music work. And sorry. There you go. There it is. Somebody just went to the grift shop anyway. Solve that problem. In just a few minutes, we'll have Elmo broadcasting live to us from hell. Somebody went and bought the Shogun of Liberty, now international famous t-shirt. Whoever did that, I can't see right away, but thank you. So we're just going to say Peter Szewczak. We're going to say Peter Szewczak. So here's the lesson, Piotr. It's not a lesson in, it's not just a lesson in humility. You don't steal from kids. You don't steal hats, not candy. This is his moment of joy. There's no confusion about that. You snatch something out of a child's hands, you're a playground bully in a $2,000 suit. Here he is, Peter Szewczak, right there. There's the picture of the guy. Look, he's got a really good dye job, actually, there. That's not bad. I struggle with mine. Later, though, was some little bit of good news. He did manage to get a signed hat. He got to meet the guy again. He got a hat. There he is. He got to meet the tennis star real quick. There he is. He got to at the U.S. Open Tennis Championships after the moment went viral. Way to go, kid. Hat snatcher. Right there. Don't steal from kids. Peter tried to spin it. He said he thought the hat was being handed to him for his sons, right? Because nothing screams fatherly love like elbowing a random kid so your kids can get the loot. Very European and African coded. The tennis player, he tried to smooth things in, right? He says it was the heat of the moment, but come on, guys. This is the perfect metaphor for elites everywhere. And then, of course, the kid finally got it solved, right? The story has a happy ending. The tennis player met with the boy later, gave him a new hat. The kid was grinning ear to ear. And this proves something, that the free market fixes things in the end. Right? America's not supposed to be run by Peters in suits stealing hats from kids. It's supposed to be run by people who actually earn what they get, and no amount of corporate spin or groveling Instagram apologies is going to change that truth. It's my truth. Looks like we've unlocked the bonus content, especially thanks to Andy Opperman and Nomad Johnny coming in for the clutch. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Frickety. Thank you, Fred Siegel. Thanks to all of our friends who made Rumble Rants today to continue the Wake Up America show. The financial contributions matter a lot. We have phase 1 of bonus content. We have phase 2 of bonus content. We've unlocked both phases, and we have got a third phase of bonus content that will be coming to you soon, but it's going to be so extravagant that it's going to be like double the amount of the bonus content that we have right now. More details on that sooner, but don't go away, because what is that noise? What is that I hear? What is that sound? Oh, is that Elmo? All right. Well, there you go. Elmo coming live from, where is he coming live stream from? Hell? All right. NPR executives and PBS executives. Things are getting a little rowdy over there since they're running out of funds. They're burning the place down. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America shows for Liberty Network.
Everything is buried because Mr. Jack got them away. Sesame Street is broke. No, I don't get children on Sesame Street anymore because leptons might be leprosy and we have to turn it into holes or camet. It's really not. Does it try these days? Shooting up Oscar's old trash can. They get down Oscar the Grouch. Oscar is gone. He's in the refrigerator. Beckford tried to apply for Luther, but the office was qualified just as billionaires. Now the nerds are selling fat on only things to make rent. No. No, we already do that. Try for us to quit. When the PBS chief found out, declared to be Elizabeth's Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster doesn't eat cookies anymore. No, if they're so bad, he's cardboard on boxes. No, he started trying fire. The cat tried to save the budget, but that cat's misgendering too. But no, the dark doubts, and now the fire is all we have left. Elmo is scared. Elmo is sweating. Elmo wants to go back to the good old days when the worst thing was Mr. Noodle being creepy. But now it's over.
Maybe we need a producer on this show. It's time. Thanks, guys, for supporting the Wake Up America show and all that we do here. The bonus content unlocked thanks to people like yourself. Sometimes it's a little challenging. Audio is a little sketch, says Frickety. I tell you what. Hell Friday's vocal cords, like L-Dub said. Sesame Street brought to you by Budget Cuts, a homeless camp, Cookie Monster on food stamps, and Bert and Ernie canceled as yellow supremacists. Honestly, that might be the best use of government fund money I've ever seen. Not funding them, but if PBS and NPR can't survive without our tax dollars, maybe they were never really that essential in the first place. So thank you guys for unlocking the chaos. Thanks for supporting the show. And remember, guys, here on the Wake Up America show, you don't need government handouts to get the truth. We are powered by you, the makers, the patriots, the people who don't need Elmo screaming in fire to know that to work correctly, to know that freedom works. Thanks, guys. We'll get them next time. We'll be right back. Mission failed successfully. We'll see you right back again here tomorrow. On Wednesday, it's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Against the sweeping tariffs that President Donald Trump purported to impose under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit did not settle the question of whether that law authorizes import taxes, nor did it uphold the injunction that the Court of International Trade, CIT, issued against the tariffs on May 28th. But the Federal Circuit agreed with the CIT that the tariffs are unlawful, and its reasoning highlights the audacity of Trump's claim that IEEPA empowers him to completely rewrite tariff schedules approved by Congress. The decision addresses two challenges to Trump's tariffs, one brought by several businesses and one filed by a dozen states. Both sets of plaintiffs argued that Trump had illegally seized powers that belong to Congress. The Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. And although Congress has delegated that authority to the President in numerous statutes, the Federal Circuit notes in an unsigned opinion joined by 7 members of an 11-judge panel, it has always used clear and precise terms to do so, reciting the term duties or one of its synonyms. Furthermore, Congress always has imposed well-defined procedural and substantive limitations on the President's tariff powers. IEEPA, by contrast, neither mentions tariffs or any of its synonyms, nor has procedural safeguards that contain clear limits on the President's power to impose tariffs. Yet under Trump's reading of the statute, it empowers him to impose any tariffs he wants against any country he chooses for as long as he deems appropriate, provided he perceives an unusual and extraordinary threat that constitutes a national emergency, and avers that the import taxes will deal with that threat. To justify his tariffs, Trump declared 2 supposed emergencies, one involving international drug smuggling and the other involving the U.S. trade deficit. The former emergency, he said, justified punitive tariffs on goods from Mexico, Canada, and China, with the aim of encouraging greater cooperation in the war on drugs. The latter emergency, he claimed, justified hefty, ever-shifting taxes on imports from dozens of countries, which he implausibly described as reciprocal, leaving aside the question of whether it makes sense to characterize drug trafficking and trade imbalances, both of which are long-standing phenomena, as unusual and extraordinary threats. Trump's attempted power grab is striking even for him. Since IEEPA was promulgated almost 50 years ago, past presidents have invoked IEEPA frequently, the Federal Circuit notes. But not once before has a president asserted his authority under IEEPA to impose tariffs on imports or adjust the rates thereof. Rather, presidents have typically invoked EPA to restrict financial transactions with specific countries or entities that the president has determined pose an acute threat to the country's interests. Trump claims to have discovered a heretofore unnoticed tariff power in an IEEPA provision that authorizes the president to regulate importation. And that power, he avers, is not subject to any procedural and substantive limitations, except for the pro forma requirement that he declare a national emergency based on a foreign threat. As the Federal Circuit dryly observes, it seems unlikely that Congress intended, in enacting IEEPA, to depart from its past practice and grant the president unlimited authority to impose tariffs. Trump's assertion of that authority runs afoul of the major questions doctrine, the Federal Circuit says. According to the Supreme Court, that doctrine applies when the executive branch asserts powers of vast economic and political significance. In such cases, the government must point to clear congressional authorization for that asserted power, the appeals court notes. The tariffs at issue in this case implicate the concerns animating the major questions doctrine, as they are both unheralded and transformative. The Supreme Court has explained that where the government has never previously claimed powers of this magnitude, the major questions doctrine may be implicated. The Federal Circuit was unimpressed by the government's citation of United States versus Yoshida International, a 1975 case in which the now-defunct Court of Customs and Patent Appeals approved a 10% import surcharge that President Richard Nixon had briefly imposed in 1971 under the Trading with the Enemy Act, TWEA. Although Nixon relied on a different statute, the government's lawyers noted, the court concluded that the phrase regulate importation in TWEA encompassed tariffs. Even assuming that conclusion was correct, the Federal Circuit says, Yoshida does not hold that TWEA created unlimited authority in the president to revise the tariff schedule, but only the limited temporary authority to impose tariffs that would not exceed the congressionally approved tariff rates. Trump, by contrast, claims IEEPA gives him carte blanche to set tariffs, regardless of what Congress has said. The government's expansive interpretation of regulate is not supported by the plain text of IEPA, the Federal Circuit says. The government's reliance on the ratification of our predecessor court's opinion in Yoshida does not overcome this plain meaning. The appeals court adds that the government's understanding of the scope of authority granted by IEPA would render it an unconstitutional delegation. 4 judges agreed with the majority that IEPA does not grant the president authority to impose the type of tariffs imposed by the executive orders. But they went further in a separate opinion, arguing that the statute does not authorize the president to impose any tariffs at all. As Reason's Eric Boehm notes, the appeals court nevertheless vacated the CIT's injunction and remanded the case for further consideration in light of the Supreme Court's June 27th decision in Trump versus CASA. In that June 27th ruling, the court questioned universal injunctions that judges had issued in 2 birthright citizenship cases, to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary to provide complete relief to each plaintiff withstanding to sue. Although the Supreme Court held that the universal injunctions at issue likely exceed the equitable authority Congress has granted to federal courts, the Federal Circuit notes, it declined to take up, in the first instance, arguments as to the permissible scope of injunctive relief. Instead, it instructed the lower courts to move expeditiously to ensure that, with respect to each plaintiff, the injunctions comport with this rule and otherwise comply with principles of equity as outlined in the opinion. We will follow this same practice. On remand, the Federal Circuit says, the CIT should consider in the first instance whether its grant of a universal injunction comports with the standards outlined by the Supreme Court in CASA. The CIT, in other words, is tasked with deciding what sort of order is appropriate to grant the plaintiffs complete relief. Alternatively, as Boehm suggests, Congress could intervene by asserting the tariff authority that Trump is trying to usurp.